Asatari His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai, Natika Devai Shiva Vrindi Ki Jai, Namachari Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sikho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shri Satipur Bhakti Vrindi Ki Jai, Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shamakan Radhakan Gita Govardhan Ki Jai, Dam Ki Jai, Vrindavan Ki Jai. Shamina Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande, all glories assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol. Krishna Padaya, Krishna Pasaya, Bhutale, Shrimati Bhakti, Vedanta Swami, Nityananda, Saraswati Devi, Gauranga, Charana, Vishashashana, Vishashashana, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Haya Nama Namaskritha Naram Chaitanya Devam Saraswatam Vyasam Jatutaya Materiyat Rastaparish Vagreshu Nityam Bhagavata Seveya Bhagavati Nishmati Bhavati Bhavati Naishtaki. So, good morning. Just making sure that's okay. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We're reading the third canto, the 8th chapter. This is Manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And there's actually 2 verses for today. So I'm going to just read the Sanskrit and the word for word, and then we'll do everything together on the second verse, just because that's what we'll read together. So, Tasyam sa chambo rukya karni karyam Avishthito lokam apashyamanaha Parikram vyom nivirekta nitras Chatvari ledanutisha mukhani. And I'm just going to go to the next. Tashyam, in that. Sha, Brahma. Cha, and. Amba, water. Ruha Karnikayam, whirl of the lotus. Avashtita, being situated. Lokam, the world. Apashyamana, without being able to see. Parikram, circumambulating. Vayomni, in space. Vivrita netra, while moving the eyes. Chatvari, for lepe, achieved. Anudisham, in terms of direction. Mukhani, heads. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, or translation by His Divine Grace, B.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Brahma, born out of the lotus flower, could not see the world, although he was situated in the world. He therefore circumambulated all of space, and while moving his eyes in all directions, he achieved 4 heads in terms of the 4 directions. There we go. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so the next one we'll we'll take turns like we normally do. Tashma Yugantas Vasanava Nurgarna. Chalormi Chakrat Salilat Virudam.
Chalormi Chakrat Salilat Virudam.
Upashritam Kancham Ulakotatvam. Natmanam Adhavita Adidevaha.
Natmanam Adhavita.
Tashma Yugan Tashvat Sannavadhurna. Chalormi Chakrat Salita Virudam.
Chalormi Chakrat Salita Virudam.
Ashrita kanjam uloko tatvam.
Upashrita Kanjam
Natmana adhavida adideva.
Natmanam Adhavidadideva
Tashma jugantasvatsanna varguna. Jalurmi chakra salida virudam.
Jalumi Chakrasalila Virudam
Ashritat kanjam uloka tatvam.
Upashrita Kanjam Ulokatattvam
Natmanam adhavidad adideva.
Natmanam Adivadadideva
Someone else like to try?
Tasmat Yuganta Shashvanaduvaguna
Tasmat yugantas vasanavaragana.
Jalur Chakrat Salita Virudha
Jalurmi chakra salida virudam.
Upasrita Kanjam Ulokatatvam
Upashrita Kanjam Ulokatattvam
Natmanam Tadvidat Adideva
Natmanam adhavidad adideva.
Hare Krishna. Tasma Juganta Swasna Shashna Bhagavana
Tasmat yugantas vasanavaragana.
Chakra Salila Virudam
Jalurmi chakra salida virudam.
Sita Kanyam Loka Tadvama
Ashrita kanjam ulokatattvam.
Atmana Abda Vidad Adi Deva
Natmanam adhavidad adideva.
Tasmajuranta swasana vaguna.
Tasmat yugantas vasanavaragana.
Jalurmi chakra salila virudam.
Jalumi Chakrasalila Virudam
Upashrita kanya ulokatattvam.
Upashrita Kanjam Ulokatattvam
Manana davida dideva.
Natmanam adhavidad adideva.
Tasmad Yuganta Shvasana Vaguna
Tasmat yugantas vasanavaragana.
Jalormi Chakrat Salivad Virudam
Jalurmi chakra salida virudam.
Pashrita Kanjam Ulokatatvam
Ashrita kanjam ulokatattvam.
Natmanam Madhavidad Adideva
Natmanam adhavidad adideva. Anyone online?
Hare Krishna. Tasmad Yuganta Swasana Vaguna
Tasmat yugantas vasanavaragana.
Jalormi Chakrat Salilad Virudam
Jalurmi chakra salida virudam.
Upashita Kanjam Yulokatattvam
Upashrita Kanjam Ulokatattvam
Natmanam Adhavidad Adideva
Natmanam adhavidad. Still do word for word. Tashmat.
Tasmat.
From there.
From there.
Yuga Anta.
Yuga
At the end of the millennium.
the end of the millennium,
Svasana.
Svasana,
The air of devastation.
the air of devastation,
Avagurna.
Avagurna,
Because of movement.
because of movement,
Jala.
Jala,
Water.
water,
Urmi Chakras.
Urmi Chakra,
Out of the circle of waves.
out of circle of waves,
Salilats.
Salila,
From the water.
from the water,
Virudam.
Viruddha,
Situated on them.
situated on them,
Upashrita.
Upachrita,
Having the shelter of.
having the shelter of
Kanjam.
Kanjam,
Lotus flower.
lotus flower,
Ooh.
Ooh.
In astonishment.
In
astonishment,
Loka Tattvam.
Lokatatvam,
The mystery of creation.
mystery of creation,
Na.
now,
Not.
not,
Atmanam.
Atmanam,
Himself.
himself,
Adha.
Ada,
Perfectly.
correctly,
Avidat.
Adiva,
Could understand.
could understand,
Adi Deva.
Adideva,
The first demigod.
first demigod.
Translation purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus, or himself. At the end of the millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves. Purport. Lord Brahma was perplexed about his creation, the lotus, and the world, even though he tried to understand them for 1 millennium, which is beyond calculation in the solar years of human beings. No one, therefore, can know the mystery of the creation and cosmic manifestation simply by mental speculation. The human being is so limited in his capacity that without the help of the Supreme, he can hardly understand the mystery of the will of the Lord in terms of creation, continuance, and destruction. So I'll read the translation again. Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus, or himself. At the end of the millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves. So we're really learning about the appearance of Lord Brahma, which is pretty, hard topic to even ourselves wrap our heads around, let alone Lord Brahma couldn't even conceive of it. He appeared and was like, whoa, how did this happen? Where am I? What is all of this around me? What is my responsibility? What is my duty? And so Lord Brahma, even though he is the creator of this universe, he is still, and he is the foremost in this universe. We know that he is created from Krishna, from Vishnu. He still is trying to figure out who he is, who he is in relation to the Lord, who he is in relation to Creator. So he knows that he is the creator of this universe. That is part of his duty. And it's in one of the later verses in Bhagavatam, it talks about Lord Brahma appearing and immediately going to this creative space. He's the creator. That's what he's done. That's what he's always done. And because that is his propensity from prior births, this is the propensity of Lord Brahma, that he is as a creative being. But even still, even though he's the creator of all of this around us, he still doesn't understand. And so I love, if you've listened to some of the classes this week, Acharya was giving us a little bit of an insight on the lifespan of Lord Brahma, which is pretty hard to wrap our heads around, right? I mean, Lord Brahma, he only lives for 100 years, but that's not our 100 years at all. And I have the breakdown here of all of it. So, Lord Brahma actually, it turns into, it's basically 3 trillion and change is in our equivalence. And so all of this, as you look at a yuga cycle, we know the Kali Yuga, and like I said, Acharya went through this very nicely the other day with all the different spans of Kali Yuga, or the yuga cycles. And that doesn't even touch it. A Manu is even more yuga cycles. So if we keep expanding, that still doesn't even touch, a day in the life of Brahma, let alone 100 years of Lord Brahma. So at the end of all of that, then also Lord Brahma is not eternal, which is another thing for us to even wrap our heads around, let alone Lord Brahma has this incredible lifespan, but he's not eternal either. At the end, there is destruction. It all repeats. And so in this understanding of trying to understand Lord Brahma, getting to see really how he perceives his own creation. And there's a verse here there's a verse in the further in the Bhagavatam that talks about the duration of his life cycle, but also it talks about his pastime. So Lord Brahma is the first living entity and the secondary creator of the universe. He possesses the longest duration of life in the universe. And that because of that, it's like I said, it's beyond all of us to even be able to understand. The two solar movements make one day and night of the demigods, and that combination of day and night is one complete calendar year for the human being. But this 1 year is 1 day and 1 night of demigods. And thus 1 year of demigods is 360 human years. So now we're boiling it down. Even a year of a demigod is 360 human years. So that's well past our lifespan already. So that's just 1 year of a demigod, and you've already multiple generations can be rolled up to that span of time. So that's, like I said, for us, and it's not for us to really know exactly all of these details, but it's to provide some context for us to know that it's very vast. It's very difficult for us to even wrap our heads around, to conceive of. And I know that in the past, if you were given a class once where, giving the example of the frog in the well, trying to understand the vastness of the ocean and trying to puff himself up to experience that vastness of the ocean because he was in a well and he couldn't possibly conceive of the vastness of the ocean. And this is our perception in regards to the vastness of the life of Lord Brahma. But yet again, Lord Brahma in this universe, he thinks he's the only Brahma. And I love this story, this pastime, when Krishna calls on Lord Brahma and Lord Brahma arrives and the gate, and he knocks, and the gatekeeper is there. And he said, Lord Brahma, tell Krishna, Lord Brahma's here. And the gatekeeper's like, which one? He's like, which one? Well, the four-headed one, of course, the guy governs this universe. And then the gatekeeper goes back to Krishna, hey, the four-headed Brahma's here. And so Krishna comes in and Lord Brahma enters and Krishna's starting to talk to him. And Lord Brahma's, I'm really confused. You asked me you had your doorkeeper ask me a question. I just don't understand. Why would your doorkeeper ask me which Brahma? And Krishna's like, well, you're just one of millions, one of many. And, there's 10-headed Brahmas, 100-headed Brahmas. You're just a 4-headed Brahma in this very small universe. What to speak of all of the other Brahmas that are out there. So, and I just think that's really, puts it into context for my small brain and my frog in a well kind of life that I live, that is very isolated to my own existence, to be able to conceive outside of that well, outside of the mind. And so I really love that story because it gives us context. Sometimes we just think we're like, like I'm this or I'm that. But, I'm Vrindavaneswari, here. And even Wendy Romig, who was a child in like some, country town somewhere, like this tiny little thing, this existence that I have here is so small. It's so small compared to everything else out there. And sometimes we get so but we're really it's not to beat us up and just like, you're a low person, you're nothing, but it's to put it into context at least, that we have this contextual understanding that there's a lot of vastness around us, that we're only just a tiny, tiny particle of that, a tiny particle. So I wanted to read from the Brahma Samhita for a moment, because I love just reading some of the translations. I love the story and how it goes into Lord Brahma's appearance. And I'm going to start at text 22, because it comes into his appearance. The divine lotus, which springs from the navel pit of Vishnu, is in every waterway, related by the spiritual tie with all the souls, and is the origin of four-faced Brahma versed in the four Vedas. So here we now know that they're talking about our Brahma. They're not talking about, the 100-faced Brahma from a different universe. So we know this one's ours. On coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, turned his mind to the act of creation under the impulse of previous impressions. But he could see nothing but darkness in every direction. Then the goddess of learning, Saraswati, the divine consort of the Supreme Lord, said thus to Brahma, who saw nothing but gloom in all directions: O Brahma, this mantra, viz. Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopi Jnana Vallabhyaya Vaiha Svaya, will assuredly fulfill your heart's desire. O Brahma, do thou practice spiritual association by means of this mantra, then all your desires will be fulfilled. Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practiced the cultural acts for Krishna in Goloka, lordship of Svetatvi, for a long time. His meditation ran thus: there exists a divine lotus of 1,000 petals, augmented by millions of filaments in the transcendental land of Goloka. On this world, there exists a great divine throne in which is seated Sri Krishna, the form of eternal effulgence of transcendental bliss, playing on his divine flute, resonant with the divine sound. With his lotus mouth, he is worshipped by his amorous milkmaids with the respective subjective portions and extensions, and also by his external energy, who stays outside, embodying all mundane qualities. Govindam Adipursham Tadaham Bhajami. He's here to worship the Lord. He's our creator. And the Brahma is creating everything, but yet, even through that, what is it saying here? He's desirous of satisfying Govinda. That is his one desire. That's the one thing he wants, is to satisfy Govinda. So then that Brahma is but that is his whole purpose, but he is also the creator here. So in Bhagavad Gita 7:26, Vedaham Satmatanti Vartamanani Karjuna Vishyayani Chabutani Mam Tu Veda Nakashtana. O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in all the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me, no one knows. So Krishna is really the only one that holds all knowledge of everything. And he tells us right here. He knows everything that's happened. He knows how Lord Brahma was born. He knows that there's more than one Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma didn't know that, So even the universal demigod that oversees everything here, he still didn't know he was not the only one. So what does that say? What does that leave with us? My little frog in a well existence here, trying to wrap my head around Krishna, when even Lord Brahma, struggles to do so. It's not an easy process, but we have some tools available to us. And here, it doesn't mean that just because Krishna knows everything and he still gives us guidance, right? So we're here. He's giving us guidance through our Chaitya Guru. He through the Paramatma in our hearts. So through that, he's seated in the heart of everyone as if seated in the vehicle. He's seated in the heart of everyone, giving us guidance and helping us navigate through life. But as the individual spirit soul, we are here to try and understand this. Maybe we're not. Maybe we're here just navigating material energies covered over and wondering why things are so hard all the time and trying to figure out. And that is the true covering of the spirit soul. The spirit soul we're just trying to figure out if the soul even exists, right? Scientists are trying to prove that still. I don't know if anyone's ever listened to, there's a devotee, Akanda Das, and he did a whole Atma paradigm thing, which is actually pretty interesting. He's a scientist from Great Britain. And he did this whole presentation over the course of a year called the Atma paradigm, kind of taking science and scientific understanding and applying it with the Bhagavatam and the understanding of the soul because science is still yet to prove it. And as Prabhupada said, doctors, when someone is laying there on the table and they flatline, doctors are still trying to figure out, yes, the heart stopped. Maybe the brain, the brain still stopped? Maybe the brain activity is gone. So now what? What officially, when do they declare someone dead? Well, they do it usually when their heart has stopped, there's no breathing, no activity for a certain period of time, right? They call it, right? They're done. But the concept of the soul, can someone be alive without a soul? They just say no, that's not possible. Everything has every living entity has a soul, even a tree. Even a tree just out there, beautifully standing there, tolerating everything, has a soul. So if we're trying to understand even just the presence of the soul, understanding the soul cannot be destroyed, it cannot be burned, it's eternal. Then this is our conception here, what we are trying to understand. So now we hear that, we know it mentally, intellectually. And I love earlier this week, Charge Chandra was talking about the repetition that's required. Because I know so many times I'm like, I'll just skim past that because I've read it before. Maybe we've read a book and you kind of like, or you've seen a movie before and you kind of fast forward through the parts you know. But this is the type of thing that we can read it and 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 read it again. And still, intellectually, you can say, yes, I know that I have Paramatma in my heart. Yes, intellectually, I can say, I know that I am part and parcel of the Lord. I know that my soul, is 1/1000th of the tip of a hair. I can recite all of these things. And I can repeat it back sometimes. My memory's a little tough sometimes. I can try and repeat it back. But am I integrating it? And how am I incorporating that knowledge into my day-to-day life? What does that look like for me? So we take this knowledge, even though we're not expected to know everything. That's not our jobs here. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in, and it's fun to get in a nice hearty debate about contents of Bhagavatam, or get into a nice hearty debate about some intellectual point about the Vedas or this or that. Sure, we all like, I like a good debate here and there. But there's a point where that becomes unproductive. So again, we might hear this information, but the debate of the information is only valuable if it is helping us better understand our constitutional position. It is not there to blow up our brains and be like, well, I can counter you with this fact, or I can counter you with this shloka, and I can this and that. So the knowledge is only there to help us identify more closely with our true position. Our true position is part and parcel of the Lord. And if we more closely identify with that through the repetition of, I am not this body, I am spirit soul, I am a servant of the Lord, there's a parampara, there's process through all of this. And the more that we take to the process and really embody all of those concepts in our day-to-day activity, then we're making some good progress. And I trained in martial arts for many years. And one of the things that in the Japanese style of martial arts, one of the things, and this is a common theme in a lot of martial arts training, one of the things that we talk about is beginner's mindset. And you'll hear this in a lot of areas of practice. But the beginner's mindset is something that also I think is very important for bhakti yoga. And it's why the sadhana bhakti is so important. It's not that we should be trying to jump ahead and be a pure devotee overnight, or jump ahead and try and suddenly be in the Raganuga Bhakti stage. It's like, I have to get there. That's my goal. I have to get there. I have to get there. I have to get there. Because if we start thinking about, I have to get there, I have to get there, I have to get there, then our ego's taking charge and jumping. But if we stay in the beginner mindset of, I don't really know much, I'm going to keep myself open, because as soon as we think we know stuff, as soon as we think we know everything or we know things, we've now shut ourselves down to that topic. If you're like, oh, I know that, I'm now closed down. I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to listen to anything anyone says about that topic because I already know everything I need to know about that topic. So now I've just closed my brain down and I'm not absorbing. But it is said in many different practices that this mindset is actually very, very detrimental. No matter how much we think we know, Lord Brahma doesn't know. Do I know as much as Lord Brahma? Do I know like a tip of the thousandth of a tip of the hair of Lord Brahma? Not even that much. Not even that much. I know a little bit about a couple of material things. That's it. So in that understanding, no matter how elevated we might be or whatever position we take, the beginner mindset will always keep us open to learning, keep us open to growing and understanding more and more and more and more and more who we are in relationship to the Lord, who we are in relationship to one another as spirit souls, who we are as a servant to the servant of the servant of the servant. Because that beginner mindset also keeps us humble. You know, that we can't be falsely humble. You know, it's really hard. As soon as you put false in front of humble, humble goes away. Right? They're incompatible. You can't, like, false humility is actually, false humility is really just a mimicry. It's just a mimicry. We're just acting a role. That whole fake it till you make it. You know, I knew someone a long time ago that used to watch this, like, I don't even remember who the influencer was at the time, and they go up on stage and they're thinking about how to make money and do this and do that, and they're like, you fake it till you make it. You wanna look important, you go out and you buy that Rolex. You buy that Rolex because that's gonna make you think you're wealthy, and that's gonna make you think you're important. You go out and you buy that Mercedes. You do that. You fake it until you make it. No, we don't do that here. That is out the window. Because if we try and fake it till we make it, what we might be doing is we might be shutting ourselves down to truly understanding the process. So we don't want to fake anything. And sincerity, Krishna wants sincerity from us. He knows that through this process, he knows that we are spirit souls. And we have imperfections. And I got in a nice little discussion the other day with my husband. It was a lively discussion. I loved it. It was about perfection. So in our process, humans we know are imperfect. But he's like, but we're all perfect the way we are. And I said, I agree with that to a point. We're all here just as we are, right? We were placed on the earth just as we were meant to. So that's a compassionate. So when we look at this concept of perfection, we can say, we can all be like, you're perfect just the way you are. And that is a beautiful, compassionate approach to each other, to say, like, I see your spirit soul because you possess spirit soul, that perfection is within you. But as jivas, we are naturally imperfect. And that in that imperfection, that imperfection then causes us to lie and cheat and have imperfect memory and imperfect senses. And I was just reading in a book, I love reading books on psychology. It's part of my field in the healthcare field. It's important to kind of stay up on these things. And I was reading this book on psychology, and it had a lot of Buddhist things in it, which I think some of the Buddhist concepts can really apply to the psychology part of things. But there was this concept they were talking about, I was reading it last night actually, where our mind can be our best friend and our worst enemy. And we can go through life and navigate life, and our mind is telling us these stories. And even in day-to-day life, our mind might be repeating something and we're perceiving it. But is it really that? Is that the truth of what's happening? So this is the imperfection aspect of being in the material body, is that our minds can play tricks on us based on our conditioning. We're covered over. Our souls have the potential Our souls have the potential for perfection, but they're still covered over. But they are spark. But Paramatma is perfect. So luckily we have that in our hearts too. We have that Paramatma, we have the Guru that we can turn to. The two birds, right? And I love the way Paramatma is always described. This is such a beautiful and a beautiful way to look at it, is that the two birds, one bird is looking out, one bird is looking at the other bird. And this is Paramatma looking at us, looking out into the world. How are we going to behave? What are we doing? Paramatma can remain aloof from all of this. And someone gave me a picture. They were getting rid of some old Japanese artwork a few years ago. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of nice. And I looked at one of the pictures and I was like, it's two birds on a branch. One bird's looking out, one bird's looking at the other bird. I was like, oh my God, I have soul and super soul. It just happened to land, and it was like Japanese artwork, but it's soul and super soul. And so we have super soul there to guide us, but even still, because we are in this material bodies, our senses perceive. So I've been really meditating a lot on intentional bhakti, intentional practice. How do we bring intentionality into our day-to-day lives of practicing bhakti? What does that look like? You know, we can chant our rounds and be like, check that off the list. All right, on with my day. Or we can chant our rounds, know that our brains, we're all over my brain. I'll speak for myself only. I know I chant my 16 rounds and my brain's like, I was like, okay, we can do better tomorrow. But that's the intentionality of it, is that I just finished my rounds for the day and I know I'm going to try and do better tomorrow. And then throughout the day, we can just get blasted into the material energies and pulled around and whipsawed throughout the day. Let our emotions just completely yank us around, because that happens. We suddenly were like, so angry with this person. Oh yeah, oh, frustration, you know, oh, I didn't get what I wanted. Or like, yay, something happy happened. Oh, angry again. You know, and you can just feel whiplash by the end of the day. Or the intentionality of our practice is that we go and step into the day, we take a breath, we slow it down a hair so that we can start observing. Because Krishna's observing us, but we're usually not observing ourselves. But there's two. There's the soul, super soul. What if we actually start observing ourselves, right? 2 for the price of 1. We get twice the benefit if we start actually observing ourselves instead of just Krishna observing us. Because then we're more intentional, then we're more aware. Now we've just taken it up a notch. We're still in that beginner mindset, right? The beginner mindset does not go away. That's forever, and it's forever and forever in the day of Brahma. Beginner mindset is really critical, but the intentionality added on top of that beginner mindset now can really start amping up our ability to see and to feel and to understand who we are in relation to the Lord. And so how do we do that? So we observe ourselves, we take note. When an emotion comes up, we stop and name it. I love this naming. This is like a psychology thing, but we feel an emotion and we name it. Anger. There, it's gone. What do you know? It's gone, you know? And then something else will come up. And then we can start everything that we're doing in our life. We look around and be like, that's Krishna's. Krishna's helping me with this. Krishna's here. Krishna's there. Krishna's there. Krishna's bringing me this understanding. Krishna is allowing me to do the things in my life so that I can work toward thinking more about him every single day, every moment. Because what is a perfect, the perfect understanding, a pure devotee, that perfectional stage of devotional life, is that we are in constant absorption, thinking about Krishna. So I'm like, if I can get like 2 seconds a day, you know, I'll like, yes, grab onto those moments. But we want to try and increase that. So we work toward that. We chant when we're not chanting when we're not on our beads is a beautiful way to do that. And I love this. Did you ever put your beads down and then you're walking around, obviously you're like, my tongue's still moving. I'm still like, oh, that's, because your brain gets in that mode. You're just suddenly walking around. Now, whenever I catch myself doing that, I smile, I'm like, oh, it worked. The fan blades are still moving, even after I put my beads down. So we want to get more and more and more that we are seeing Krishna and we are feeling Krishna in everything that we do. So that was my biggest, so to bringing us back to Lord Brahma, his understanding is vast. Our understanding is less so. But the more that we keep ourselves in that space of sadhana bhakti, keep ourselves associated with people that are wanting the same things, that's really critical. If we associate with people that want the same thing in their life and that have a similar mood, a similar way of approaching, that will only elevate us. And then finding those senior people, and guru, and looking to Prabhupada, listening to Prabhupada's lectures, because hearing Prabhupada's voice, the Vani, that is so critical. Even just hearing the voice is so transcendental. The way it can just go into our brain. So that's why we have the chant, the japa, on in the morning when we're chanting. It's a beautiful thing. So I'm going to stop it here and invite any questions, reflections, corrections are always welcome too. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So happy to see you. I haven't come to a Saturday morning program in a while, and this is a pleasant surprise to see you here.
Yeah.
You said a lot of really wonderful things. In my mind, I was kind of putting it all together. And so with the way I understand intentionality is, I think it's critical to be far-sighted, not nearsighted in our thinking. And our thinking should be based in remembrance of who we are, our relationship to Krishna, and who Krishna is. It's this like inconceivable being who's like eternally and just expanding in all these diverse, variegated ways. And that like, and reflecting on that and remembering that can bring us back, can put our mind in that beginner mind. So I was a Buddhist for like 8 years. And in Buddhism, they call it don't know mind. And I've kept that. I've kept that with me through my bhakti, is don't know mind. Like, I don't know anything. This is just what I've heard. This is what I understand from people who know more than I do. Or this is what scripture says, but I don't know it for myself. Like, how could I ever claim to know any of this? Like, I'm desperately trying to know, but I don't know. And that ability to like put the mind in that condition of like, don't know. It's like you're making the mind into a child, and that's how the intelligence takes control again. Because the mind has to like settle down into like a humble position in order for the intelligence to rise up to that authoritative position, and that remembrance can put the mind in that don't know mind, that beginner mind.
Yeah.
And then that's like, and then that's when, like, when our intelligence takes over, that's when like intentionality really like, rises to the surface. And in that far-sighted thinking, we think like, not like, oh, I need to do my job. No, we think, I want to love Krishna. Like, I want to experience praying. I want to go back to Godhead. And my Guru Ma, she says like, that desire to go back to Godhead is a desire to love and serve Krishna. Like, that's what's implied in that desire.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, that is absolutely right, all of that. And, you know, you're talking about like the priyojana, you know, like
Yeah.
we have that, what is that, the ultimate goal? The
Yeah.
ultimate goal is the love. Because bhakti is a relationship, and that's one of the things that is so critical. Bhakti is love, but it's a relationship with Krishna. And so through that relationship, when we really strive to have that relationship, like you said, the setting that goal, the intention comes through that initial goal, but then getting into that beginner mindset, it does take a little bit of an absorption of the ego, in that sense that, and this is what we in bhakti terms refer to as that false ego, that which is keeping us from knowing Krishna. Because any of the mental speculation, and Prabhupada talks about this a lot, the mental speculation, the intellect, and as we apply it, so many of those things can completely block us from actually reaching that goal and keeping ourselves in that space of almost like a childlike understand, or not understand, but childlike openness to wanting to love. Yeah.
Because that, like mental speculation, it's the desire to conceptualize. And we're trying to conceptualize the inconceivable.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's never gonna work.
Exactly.
It's never gonna work, and it's just gonna keep us separated.
Yeah.
And it's gonna build that wall.
Yep.
And that's what conceptions do. It's like you're building a perimeter around an idea.
Yeah. We can't distill Krishna down to a material understanding, then you're offending Krishna. Right? And I got in a debate with someone about this. We were debating some of the aspects of fifth canto. That was lively. And it's really important to recognize that while things are written in the fifth canto, we can't fully try and put it into an understanding that fits our worldview. Because as soon as we do that, we're now trying to fit Krishna in a box. And that is now offensive to Krishna, because now you're trying to put him in material terms. And that's not possible. So we read some of these things, we take it to like, okay, and we try and understand it as best we can, but it's not an understanding to try and put Krishna in a box and say, okay, this is, because even still, we read things, we understand them only in the ability of our own minds. And so that trying to over speculate and wrestle with concepts that are just so far beyond us. Even Lord Brahma can't understand them. Why are we trying to wrestle with these things? Like, what is the end game there? It only causes, it decreases our bhakti. It causes angst, it causes arguments, it causes wars, a lot of strife. So that's a no-win game, you know. So we have to really keep ourselves, you know, in that sadhana space, that sadhana bhakti space, that beginner's mindset. So thank you.
And that sadhana bhakti, that carries on into prem. Like, it's not like we give it up at any point.
Never, no. The sadhana bhakti is the process that takes us all the way through. Now, there's steps that are discussed, like the Raganuga bhakti, which is that sudden, you know, spontaneous, that spontaneous understanding and connection to the bhakti process. So there's different stages, and we can understand those stages, but you know, Prabhupada encouraged us to maintain, be sadhikas.
Yeah.
You know,
And
always,
that's the beginner mind.
always be sadhikas. There's no reason for anything else, really. So thank you. Yes.
Thank you for the class.
Thank you.
The perspective you were speaking about in the beginning of the class between our lives and the life of Lord Brahma, just that it's unfathomable to think of that many years and where we sit within our own lives. So sometimes when this is contemplated, the realization comes that, does any of this even matter? Does it matter if I cut the grass or not cut the grass? Does it matter if I fix the window or just let the water run in? Does it matter if I pay my taxes? Does it matter, like, you know, like, because it's such a small period of time and we're so insignificant in this overall universe, but yet we make such a big deal about certain things. So how do you get to the point of, this is the challenge when people get overwhelmed by it. It can be intimidating, like, guess none of this matters anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
it's such a good point. It might be easy to just like let go of the reins. You know, if someone could dives into this and they're just like, I mean, it could spin people out, and I'm sure it has. I'm sure it has in the history of trying to understand and conceive of these things. I'm certain it spun people out completely. The thing is that, in my understanding, which is small, in my understanding of all of this, that we can learn about this and understand it. If we start to disconnect from the material energies or the material activities, that is also not, and Krishna does not recommend that in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, we need to, Arjuna, you must carry on your duties. Carry out your material duties. It's your responsibility. You're here. You're here due to karmic activity. You're here, and if you don't take any action and you say, this is the whole, there's action and inaction and inaction and action. There's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, the action and inaction and inaction and action. We don't take any action in our material lives, then we are also not carrying out responsibilities, and the karmic activities are happening. But we can take action in the activity can be dovetailed into Krishna activity, right? So it's not that we just let go of the reins and say, wow, I'm so minuscule. And that's it's easy to maybe for the brain to go there and say, I'm so small, what's the point? And sure, we could just, go to the Himalayas and meditate there and live out our days. And that could work. But as Prabhupada pointed out, in Lord Chaitanya, we are, Lord Chaitanya's movement. This is not a sit back and let the world pass us by kind of movement. This is a preaching movement. We go out and we help others. We do our duty by helping. We do our duty by serving. We do our duty by bringing this understanding, this knowledge to others. So in order for us to be able to go out and serve Prasadam and Kensington, to do book distribution in Rittenhouse Square, to do kirtan, in order for us to do all these things that are meant for Lord Chaitanya's movement, we have to pay taxes. We have to live in our house. We have to have a job. We have to feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, right? So this is doing our duty as Krishna prescribed. We can't just step back and let go of the reins. While they at first seem bewildering, and we might feel tempted to just be like, screw it. Like, I don't need to do any of this. I'm so minuscule and insignificant. But that's not the process that's recommended for us through the Parampara. It's not the process that Krishna even recommends in Bhagavad Gita. So there is action. Bhakti is action. It's an actionable path. So that is the process. We have to still take action in our material bodies. Even demigods have material bodies. They're just not visible. So we have to still always take action. Is that?
No, it's a great point. And it makes me think from both sides. So if you do make a mistake, because everything is so vast and we are so small, that mistake that we make, we'll say it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's really not the end of the world. Like, we're not setting the universe
Right.
in like a different motion
We're not
because
spitting it out.
we may make a mistake, and that
We can make it the end of our world. In our mind.
in our minds,
Yeah.
Right.
Because it can be like for ours, but when we give it our perspective in terms of the whole continuum of time, and it allows us to recover.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
There's always a point where we can get back on and
Yeah.
we can recover, we can
Yeah.
make amends. Like it gives you that opportunity. And then the reverse of it, it also provides the humility of, say you do make an accomplishment and you're very proud of that accomplishment. You can also think about it as it's not the end of the world, or this isn't
Not the
going
beginning of the world.
It's not the beginning of the world. So I think that perspective is very healthy to have,
Mhm.
that it'll keep you equipoised and grounded.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good point because I think it can feel, and this is part of it too, is context. Like we can feel so in our own heads. And this is where like even the intentional bhakti, like even just observing our own thoughts and how we engage with the world and the people around us, and engage with the path forward is that, it's not that we should just go out and just do this, this, and this, and, commit crimes and hurt people and be like, in the scheme of the universe, it's a pretty small thing that happened, right? Because there is that karmic responsibility. So this is the balancing act, right? So we do have, yes, we can help ourselves feel better by saying, it's not the end of the world, I made a mistake. There may be a karmic action to it. Maybe tomorrow, whatever, something will happen. But so there is, because we're in these material energies, there is that karmic reaction that we have to always just be aware of. But it can help maybe pull us out of something when we do make a mistake, or, I forget something, or don't know that I'm supposed to be giving class, on a Saturday. These are things that we can like, okay, in the scheme of things, it's small. I can feel better about myself. So, we have to have a degree of self-esteem, and our egos have to exist to a point in order to help us continue to exist in this world. But I like your counterpoint to say, like, it's in the scheme of the grand scheme of things, when these things happen, hopefully it's not the end of the world. It will be okay. We will recover. We don't want to spiritually bypass things, which I really hate the spiritual bypass process. It's like, you'll be fine. It's okay. Or Krishna will take care of it. It'll be fine. And we don't want to spiritually bypass that because that can be detrimental too. We have to still acknowledge what we're feeling in our hearts and our minds, not get attached to it, but still feel it. So it's everything's walking that tightrope, right? There's always this, I think in life, and especially the more we delve into spiritual life, I find that it gets more precarious. It gets to this tightrope. You're navigating these things and trying to kind of find that middle path, and in really trying to figure our way through so that we can maintain our focus on Krishna. Understand we're not attached to these emotions, don't spiritually bypass it, be kind to people, but sometimes things happen in life, there's karmic reaction, there's a lot to navigate. It's a lot to navigate, but we just keep it simple.
Awareness is key. And that's another fundamental principle of Buddhism that I've carried with me into bhakti.
It's awareness.
It's really, that's smarana. It's awareness. What am I aware of at this moment?
Yep.
Am I aware that I'm a servant of Krishna? Am I aware that I'm
That's our consciousness.
Yeah.
And this is the consciousness that Acharya was talking about. Krishna consciousness versus material consciousness. Where is our consciousness pointed at that moment?
Yeah.
Where is our focus? Yeah. And we have to just constantly be checking it. Now, I recommend checking in with ourselves, like throughout the day, even if it's like a little notepad that we just like, okay, and I'm going to check in with myself right now. And just like, where am I? Write down what we're feeling, whether we remember thinking of Krishna, like just checking in constantly, because that's going to help us maintain that awareness and that intentionality in our daily practice.
I just want to say about the little things, like cutting the grass, like that, like, again, I think of it as setting the right conditions, like taking care of ourselves, paying our bills. Yeah, well, we're just setting the conditions so that we can serve.
Exactly. It's a mode of goodness, and that's what we want to. We want to strive for the mode of goodness as best as we can. So I think that's.
I want to say one thing about beginner's mindset.
Yes.
I really love that term, and it's something I think we can remind ourselves of individually. And I saw Mother Teresa mopping the floor as you were talking about beginner's mindset. She was mopping the floor up there, and the beginner mindset in bhakti is that we're eternal servants of Krishna. And we should never lose that beginner's mindset that we're eternal servants. And then what that means, and the opposite of that is that we forget that we're servants and that we've actually graduated or elevated ourselves to some higher position. And entitlement sets in, pride sets in, division sets in. And as I saw her up there, just bhakti is very simple. You know, if we remind ourselves of this principle that we're the servants and we should be acting like a beginner's mind for all time and not let ourselves get trapped by the illusion that we're somebody better, something more than a servant of Krishna. You know, we'll be in a safe space.
Yeah. That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. Anyone still online or? No, we kind of went late.
They all bailed.
We had our own chat over here. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much.
I don't see any hands.
Okay.
We're all here. We had,
Have a wonderful day. Do you want to do any announcements?
Just another announcement that at 10 o'clock, we have a cleanup day here at the temple. Please come on by to help, you know, just engage in social service here in the Krishna's temple. Tomorrow is Ram Navami. We'll be celebrating it at 4:30, same time as the Sunday. Please come by, please be on time so you can take part in all the festivities. You don't want to miss out. Lots of kirtans, we'll have Abhishek with Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman. And it'll be a great time. So come. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Panchakalpa, Trivishta, Karpasa,